Hello, I'm Rick Stivers from YoungMartin'sReels. Today, we're going to be working on a Mitchell 300 XE. But before we do that, if you watched the fishing video the other day, you saw that I was supposed to have changed the line on Michael's Shimano reel, and I didn't. And we got out to the lake, and he had rotted line that you could just take and snap with your hand. I want everybody to know, yes, I now have new line on Michael's Shimano reel, so it's ready to go fishing. We also had a casualty from that fishing trip. This rod, when I got home, I found that it had been slammed in the tailgate of the truck. And I now have a one-piece rod. I went through my dad's stuff that he had left behind for me, and I was able to find, just a second, and I was able to find this. I'm assuming they call it a ferrule. I'm not real sure what its official name is, or even where you buy these, but my dad had probably 25 or 30 of these in a box, and I went through and I was able to find this one, and it actually fits this rod. If I had some glasses on, this would be easier. Okay, and this is designed to be glued on here on this end, and then this end here slides in like so, and then this other end here would be glued in like so. And so that will repair this tip and make it solid again once it's all glued together. So I wasn't very happy about the fact that the rod is broken. However, it does appear that I'm going to be able to mostly fix it, and it won't be as good as it was, but it's still going to be functional again. So I will show you the finished product on that when I get it done. I might even go back and add some wraps to this, but I'm afraid to just make it that much thicker and make it more cumbersome. So I will probably not add those wraps. I may just paint this black to match the rest of the rod, but it's going to be glued on, and it's like a perfect fit. I mean, it's a very nice ferrule, if that's what it's called. And anybody knows out there specifically what they're called and where you purchase them, let me know, and I can add that into my description. In the meantime, on this same rod, this is a rod you guys saw me fishing with if you were watching the fishing video. On this rod is this Mitchell 300 XE spinning reel. I'm gonna back up a little bit so you can see it. Okay, I've had this reel for, I know, 25 years. And as I told you on my fishing video the other day, 3 years ago, I tried to take this reel apart. I was gonna service it myself. And my dad's health had started getting down, so I wasn't gonna trouble him with it. And I tried to take this thing apart and service it myself, and I was unsuccessful. I couldn't figure out how to take it apart. So 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, sometime in that time frame, I took a look at it and said, you know what? I know a lot more about taking reels apart now than I did back then. So let's see what I can do with it. And yes, I was able to disassemble this reel and service it and put it back together, but I didn't put new line on it at the time. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, 3 years ago I wasn't able to do this, and now I can. So that's pretty fun. But I would like to teach other people how to do it as well. So that's where we're heading today. We're going to do this Mitchell 300 XE. Is it the same reel as the 300? No, it's a completely different reel. But is it a pretty good quality reel? Yes, I have landed a lot of really nice fish with this, and it's still smooth as can be. Nothing is worn out in it. It still functions just as it ever did. It's got the anti-reverse override on it, instant anti-reverse override, and that's one of the tricky parts in here once you get this thing apart. So I want to show you how that comes apart, how you do that. But the kicker was I couldn't figure out how to take the cover and stuff off of this thing. I couldn't even get that far with it. I managed to get the spool off and the handle off last time, and I took this little butt cap off, and that was about as far as I got. So we're going to go through this reel. I'm going to teach you how to do it and get it serviced up. I'm going to put new line on it, and when I go out this week, go fishing, this reel will be in the roundup. Okay. We're going to get started. First off, I'm going to show you the reel's perfectly functional. Everything on it works. The anti-reverse works. The anti-reverse override works, does what it's supposed to do. The drag works. I even caught a fairly decent fish with this reel this week. So let's go ahead though and get started. We're gonna start off by taking the spool off. Spool's off. Now we're gonna hold the rotor in place while we take off the handle. Let's see, I seem to recall this comes off this side over here. So we won't need to hold the rotor in place. All we gotta do is unscrew. It screws out, there goes the handle. All right, now before we can take this side plate off, we've got to take the rotor off. Okay, that's a bit different from most other reels, but that's the way this one's going to work. We're going to slide this drag clicker cog off and set that over to the side. And notice that it has 2 of these shim washers on it. Well, it's working perfectly with the 2 shim washers on there, so that's what we want to have. We've got a perfectly level wind on the spool, so that's working well. So we're going to put both of those back. Okay, once we're here, we need to take out this screw. Set that over to the side, and now we're going to remove this nut. Don't have a wrench with me at the moment, so I'm just going to use this pair of pliers because I know it's not that tight. Okay, this one comes off in a clockwise direction. All right, now the nut goes over there, and then we're going to pull the rotor off. Okay, we're going to leave the rest of this in here for the moment. Everything else is going to stay. And we're going to take off this butt cap cover. That screw comes out. We'll set it over there with the butt cap. Now, the rest of the screws on this thing, or several of them, are hidden. One was hidden under here. See this cover right here? All right, there's one there. There's a screw here, and we've got 2 screws out here, but we've got this cover right here. And if you'll notice, it doesn't split anywhere. Okay, so what we're going to do is get hold of this, lift it up, and get it to slide up and out of here. Being gentle because it's got 2 tangs that fit up underneath in here. All right, with that off, now we can get to all the screws and get them removed. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, according to the paperwork that I managed to find on these, this is not a plastic body. This is a graphite body, so it's pretty tough, and I put it through a lot of abuse, and it's still holding up just fine. All right, it's got those, and we've got 1 screw left over here, and I don't remember taking that one out. I wonder if that one holds this in. Let's give it a quick try and see if it comes apart. Nope, that screw's got to come out. Okay, I don't remember getting out my jeweler screwdriver. It's a smaller screw. So we're going to get out the smaller screwdriver so that we can get in there. I didn't remember doing that, but I guess I did. All right, that's got that screw out. Okay, and then this side panel is going to lift off. There goes this screw out. We'll just leave it in there. That way it knows where it's at. Okay, there's not going to need to be any cleanup on this because all of it was just done. But if you did need to clean it up, just a Q-tip wiping around it. And this one, even though this reel is many, many years old, when I went to take it apart, it was actually very clean inside. Okay, we're going to go ahead and rotate this around to make room for access to the crosswind block screw. Okay, we're going to remove that screw. I'll set that over there along with the axle shaft and the crosswind block itself, which has to come out and out from underneath this plate on this side. Okay, it's got this flat piece on this side that's going to have to fit underneath this metal plate right here. Okay, now this should pull out. There's our bearing on this side. We're going to set it over here. And this one's got shim washers. I'm going to take the shim washers off, set them over here. It's got this one has more than one shim washer, so we'll take both of them off. The steel one goes up against the body here. All right, and now we've got a bearing on the other side as well. So there's our main gear. Here's our bearing for the other side. Now notice that that bearing is much smaller than the bearing on the right-hand side. Okay. Now we're going to remove this screw right here on the crosswind gear. Set it over here. There we go. That has all of this ready to go and ready to be cleaned out on this side. But we still got to be able to get our pinion gear out. And this is where things got really hairy when I went to take this thing apart, because I got introduced to things I didn't know existed in here. So here's how this works. Okay, let's go ahead and take out these 3 screws. All right, with those 3 screws out, now this retainer will come out. Okay, and this is where things get a little antsy. You've got a spring right here, and the spring has got to be removed in order to lift all this out. Okay, for these careful little spring jobs, I use a safety pin with the tip bent over. We're going to hook this onto there and just lift it right off of that white piece right there, and then we're going to move this spring over out of the way. Okay, and we're going to pull all of this out together like that. Okay, what you want to be really careful with is if you decide that you need to take all of this apart, this is a free open bearing. The anti-reverse assembly in here is free and open in here, okay? So this front bearing is fine. It comes out like this. There's a bearing inside there. The lip portion of it goes to the outside. Okay, then we have this assembly right here. Okay, this is your anti-reverse. And it fits down over top of this sleeve. And if you take it off like that, you're fine. But if you pull on this white piece right here, pull it straight out, all those little bearings are going to fall out. That's what happened to me. I had to fit each one of those little bearings back inside there very carefully, get them all put back in order to get this back together. And that was not fun. It took me, I guess, a half hour, 45 minutes. You can see the bearings down inside there. Okay, and they all just sit into their own little cups, one on each side, and then sits down in there. Now, what I did do when I did that is this black piece is directional. It looks like it's the same either way, but it's not. And when I put it all back together, the anti-reverse didn't work. Okay, and the reel didn't want to spin the right direction. So I had to take it back out, pull it all apart, flip this black piece over, and put all those bearings back in and put it all back together. So it's a little tricky. If you keep it together like this, it's going to be fine. And what you can do, you can clean it out by simply leaving it all together like this. And, oh, guess what? It all just come apart again. So now you get to watch it go back together. Here we go. Okay, my video got interrupted there by my grandson's homecoming. So I had to go take care of some stuff. And now that's done. All right, now we're going to put this back together. Okay, let's start off with our pinion gear. And we'll slide our bearing on. And what we'll do with our bearing, it is a shielded bearing, but it is not a sealed bearing. And it is shielded on both sides, so it doesn't matter which way it goes. Well, what you can do is go ahead and take and flood the bearing with oil all the way around and give it a minute to sit there before you put it in, and that'll give that oil a chance to soak in a little bit. Doesn't hurt to spin it around a little bit. Okay, and that oil's going to soak into that bearing and lubricate it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be trying to put this guy back together. And if you look, see the direction that these ramps are going? Okay, you want the ramps to go in this counterclockwise position. You want to go from small counterclockwise up to the top of the ramp and then drop back down. If it's looking like this, okay, where it's going small and ramp up this way, you're going the wrong direction. So make sure you've got it like that. Okay, that side goes down. Now you've got this cage that you got to put together, and we're going to put it together with this castle facing towards the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to wipe it off real good first. We'll start it off nice and clean. Be careful. If you look very careful into these holes, see those little plastic wings in there? Those little plastic wings are what hold those bearings. And if you're not careful, I believe that you could snap those off. So be careful not to break them. Okay, once you've got it wiped off and clean, so that if you had any grit, sand, dirt, any of that, get it out of there. Okay, now we're going to go back and take this cage assembly, and we're going to put grease in each of the 6 holes on those little wings. Now, if you didn't pull all this apart, that's a good thing. You can just leave it together and put it back in. But if you're like me and you accidentally pull it apart, and you need to be able to do it this way, then the instructions are here. We'll get you back together. All right, once you've got it like that, you're going to start taking your needle bearings, okay, and you're going to set them into these holes, like so. Okay, once you set it in the hole, just kind of slide your finger over to the side and it'll stay there. Okay, do the next one. And next. And you're going to work your way all the way around, and this grease should hold the bearings in place where they need to be. There we go. Okay, once you've got it like that, sit it down just like that. And now you've got this piece that's going to go on your castellated part. Okay, now there's 2 ways that this will fit. It'll either go this way or this way. Okay, if you put it in this way, what's going to happen is the spring has got to hook on this latch, but it's got to go that direction. So that's going to be the wrong direction. You want that hook right there to be pointing in the clockwise direction, like that. Okay, we're going to set this down, and it will fit onto that castellated part. Once you've got that done, we're going to set this whole cage right back in, like so. Now, see that the oil has soaked into that bearing. It's not pooled up on top of it anymore. Now we're going to take and set this back into here. Oh, hang on, I forgot a piece. We've got this sleeve we got to put on first. Okay, slide your sleeve on, and your sleeve is keyed to the shaft. There's flat spots on there, and this sleeve has got keyways, so they fit onto there. Okay, now this is going to slide over that sleeve, like so. And then, last but not least, will be this bearing. And we'll sit it down on there, like so. And we're going to go ahead and oil it. Okay? Let's try not to drop it. Once that's done, these 2 shims go on. Now you've got a completed assembly ready to go back in. Now notice these two ribs that stick out from the sides. Okay, you've got those 2, and then you've got this white piece right here. All right, we're going to take that and set that whole assembly back down inside here. Well, these 2 tabs have got to go into these slots. See the 2 slots on there? Well, those tabs have got to fit into those slots. So we're going to slide those in. Now, make sure that the spring is over here out of the way, and we're going to slide this white assembly right past it. You got to get this to go in back here, There you go, and everything fits back in like so. At this point, you can put the spring on, but I'm going to recommend you go ahead and put this cover back on and get at least one of the screws back in. Once you've done that, then all that's going to stay in there, and you don't have to worry about it falling out, causing you grief. And it's best to get all 3 screws started before you get one all the way tight. All right, now we've got to take this little spring right here and hook it back over this little white hook right here. Which is easier said than done. There we go. All right, now if this is done correctly, we should have an operational instant on anti-reverse. Okay, it will turn one way, but it won't go the other way. Now we flip the switch. Now it goes both directions. Okay, that's the most complicated part of this reel. Now we're ready to start putting the side back on. Okay, we're going to take these 2 bearings and we're going to go ahead and lubricate them well. And again, they are both shielded bearings on both sides. We're going to put the bottom one in first. Slip it down in here. And this might look a little dirty, but all that is grease from where it was just serviced a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to a lot of trouble to try to clean all that out of there. Okay. Next part, we would take this crosswind gear. Oh, also, this bearing right here, this is a very bearinged up little reel. Oil that bearing. Take your crosswind block, grease it on the bottom and on the top and on all the teeth, and then set it back in like so. And on all the teeth, and then set it back in like so. And on all the teeth, and then set it back in like so. Once that's done, we're going to put this screw back in. And that screw doesn't do anything to hold that bearing, so it really didn't need to come out unless you need to take the bearing out. Okay, next on our agenda is going to be our main gear. We're going to slip it into that bearing. We make sure to grease it, make sure all the teeth are greased, and we're going to slip it back in. Then we're going to take our crosswind block and put it back in. Remember that this little flat piece here has got to fit underneath this metal plate right here. So we're going to set it in, make sure it's greased in the hole here. Then we're going to set it in here, get it to drop into the hole. It's easier with a pair of needle nose or hemostats. I like my hemostats best. They're less clunky. Okay, we're going to grab that. We're going to slip it down under there and into the over the post of the crosswind block. Put that on. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and put the axle shaft back in. So let's go ahead and slide the axle shaft in. Let's oil it. Slide it in, slide it into the crosswind block, line up the hole like so, and then install your screw. Okay, we're going to take this bearing, slip it back onto here, onto the side plate. That's ready to go back on now. And we're going to put our shims back in place. The steel shim goes up against the gear. And the brass or bronze or copper shim goes on the outside, like so. And at that point, we're ready to put the side cover back on, like so. All right. And we'll go ahead and put that smallest screw in first. And these 3 screws are all the same. You need to keep a good steady downward force on these screws when you put them in. They're not like machine screws like you have in a lot of reels. These are screwing into the graphite, and therefore they're kind of snug screwing down. And if you don't hold good firm downward pressure on the screws as you put them in, you're going to strip out the heads. So make sure to keep a good solid hold on those screws. We're ready to put the rotor back on. Like so. And remember, this is a reverse threaded nut, so it's going to go in the counterclockwise direction to screw it down. And I don't have my 10mm right now, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down with what most of you have anyway, which is a pair of needle nose. You don't have to get overly carried away with tightening, but make sure it's good and snug. All right, let's go ahead and put this screw in. That locks that down so that it can't undo. Now, we're going to come back and put this cover back on. Now, remember this cover slides into, got these 2 prongs right here. They're going to slide up into 2 holes in the case right here. Okay, it's going to let's see if we can get the light just right to be able to see in there. Okay, see those 2 holes right there? One here and one over here. Well, those little tangs are going to fit into that. Slide that in. You want to get those in first, and they take a little bit of finagling to get them to go in. But you don't want to force them either. And let's turn the anti-reverse to override to make it easier to keep the spool out of the way. Come on, come to Papa. I had trouble getting those to slide in last time too. There we go. That's, yep, both sides in. Okay, get them to slide all, so it goes all the way up against the body and all the way down here. Now you can put the bump cap back on. All right, that's got that. Okay, bale's tripping beautifully, but if we want to learn how to take this apart, let's go ahead and get it done before we put the handle and everything else back on. So let's take off this screw. I'm not sure I did this the other day. There's one. There's 2, and let's take the cover off and see what we got under here. Okay, what we've got is one of those spring jobs in the slide bar right here. Okay, now I didn't take this off because you can see I've still got the old red grease in there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take this loose up here so that they operate separately from each other. Take this loose like so and put this screw back into there. Okay, now we can take this screw out. All right, with that off, we can take that off, and now the spring's going to pop out. See there? And now we've got this really nasty, dirty spring, and we're going to clean it up. And this arm, this is our trip arm. We can go ahead, if we'd like, and take the trip arm out right here. Okay, and let's clean all of that up real quick. Now again, I don't know how many times I've got to say this, but I don't recommend you take this apart. I only show this so that if you have taken it apart or if you've got damage, you know how to go about fixing it. If everything is operating normally, then the only thing I recommend you doing is put a drop of oil on this and leave it be. Okay? So I'll put some grease in the slot where this rides. Like so. We're going to slide our trip release arm back in, like so. And I'm going to clean this grease off of this trip arm spring. We've already got grease in the hole. Let's slide this down in there and put this arm down in here like so. There we go. Okay, I've got all the grease cleaned off of this piece, so we're going to set him back on there. Snip it down. Okay, there's two screws here. One's a little screw, one's a larger screw. The larger screw goes in the top. We'll put it in first. And if you encounter that, put a little grease on the end of the screw to hold it in place. Okay, do the same thing on the bottom. All right, now we're ready to try to put this assembly back on, and we'll clean this up a little bit. Now see this hole right here? See that hole? That is where this spring goes into. And let's go ahead and get this out of the way. So we'll go ahead and take the other end of this off. Okay, take that trip arm off and get it out of your way. Okay, now we've got this, and we're going to be able to take and put that spring into that hole, or arm that fits into the spring into that hole. And then we are going to get the spring to lever back down inside there. Like so. And then like that. Okay. We're going to rotate it around until we get that arm to drop in. There we go. Once you got it, that arm's got to drop into the larger slot at the top. Once it's done that, go ahead and put your screw back in. And we'll check it. Make sure that we have it right. Nope, we do not have it right. Something's bound up. Something slipped. Nope, I let it slip out of the hole. I let it get too loose. Too loose. Okay, slap it back down. Gotta get that trip release right there. If you look, see that trip release? It's too close to the arm. Bring it around. Get it, there you go, like that. Okay, then get the screw down. Now, that's what it's supposed to do. If you've got it correct, go ahead and oil it around the head and around where it slides. Work it around a little bit. Okay. Let's check our fit and verify that all this still wants to go on properly. All right, we're going to set this arm in place here, like that. And then we're going to check and see if this fits properly here. Yeah, see, it's almost an exact matchup for the hole. And that's what we're after. Let me back this up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, see, when you set it in place, this should fit right there to where it's just exactly lined up with the hole all by itself. And it does. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this screw in. So that means we don't need to adjust the bail. And I was pretty sure we wouldn't need to, because this bail has just been pristinely operational ever since I got the reel. So I've never damaged it, never bent it. So this one has been mine since it was brand new, and that's been a long, long time ago that I bought this. Okay, that's good. And we're gonna come back, we're gonna take this screw back out. And we're gonna keep this roller assembly all together. And I'll tell you what we'll go ahead and do now. Let's go ahead and lubricate that roller while we're here right now. And set it in place down in the hole and put the screw back in. We're going to add grease or oil to this point and under the screw head on this side. Maneuver that around. There we go. Trips beautifully. Now we're going to put this cog back on, the axle shaft, slide it all the way down. And in our case, we've got 2 shims. I'm suggesting that most will only have 1 shim. And that all depends on how the line spools. Now, if I had 2 shims on there and the line was wrapping up thicker down on the bottom than at the top, that would mean I had too many shims, and I would have to take one off. If, on the other hand, let's say I had no shims on there and I was spooling up near the top, all the line, then I would need to add shims in order to move the spool up in order to bring it down. So that's good. All right, let's go ahead now, pull this off, and let's take a look at the drag washers. Get that out. Okay. Let's go ahead and slip out our drags. Okay, this has got felt drag washers, and boy, did they look nice since I just oiled them 3 weeks ago. And they actually performed the other day because I had a decent fish on with this rod, and they did a good job. So anyway, clean it out real good. Make sure it's clean inside. Once you've got it clean inside, it looks like there's water on that. So I'm going to wipe it down just in case I did get water in there the other day. Okay, we're going to start off with a felt drag washer. And I'm not going to oil these because they've got lots of oil on them, but I would squirt a little bit of oil, make sure it was well lubricated. Then I would put in a keyed washer. It's keyed because it's got this rectangle shape in the middle. Okay, put in the keyed washer. Then I would put in another drag washer. I would oil it. And I would put in the eared washer. That's the one that's got the ears on each side right here. Put that in. And I would put in the next felt drag washer, oil that, and then put in the last of the keyed washers. With that done, I would come back and put this retaining ring back in. And its sole purpose in life is to keep those drag washers in. Once you install that drag net, this is no longer doing anything. It just keeps them in place when you have the spool drag cap removed. Okay? There we go. Once it's in, make sure that all parts are snapped into the slot like that. All right. Set your spool back on. You don't have to worry about lining up the keys. Set it on and slowly spin it, and it will find the keyways like that. Tighten it down. Okay, drag's working fine. All right, now this line is going to get stripped off of here, and the reason being, this is a shallow spool to begin with. It's really not made for, these came with 2 spools, and somehow I managed to lose the deeper spool, the one that's made for more line. And so I cast this the other day, and when I did, it went all the way out to the end of the spool and stopped. Boop. And I was very lucky not to have snapped off my rig. So I'm going to pull the rest of this line off of here, and I'm going to load all brand new line on and get it ready. And on my next fishing trip, this reel's going to be out there. Okay. It happens to be one of my favorite little reels. I really like this reel a lot. I have enjoyed fishing with it. It is just so velvety smooth in its operation. All right, there we go. Anti-reverse over. Anti-reverse override is working. The instant anti-reverse is working. The spool drag is working. You can hear the click. The bail is tripping. And there you have the Mitchell 300 XE. It's a really sweet reel. I really have enjoyed fishing with it. I've had it, I know, probably 20 years, I think. And I could be wrong, but I don't trust my memory anymore. But I know that I've had it for a long time, and I've really enjoyed fishing with this reel. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you didn't, that's okay. Hit the dislike button and tell me what you didn't like. And if you would like to see further videos, oh, by the way, as of the time I'm filming this, I have exactly 399 subscribers. If somebody else joins up, hey, you'll be number 400, and I will be over that little milestone. So since we started in January, I have gone from no subscribers to 399. So I'm very pleased. Things are moving along. And like I said, I'm going to slow these videos down. We're not going to have nearly as many as we were. But next week, maybe I'll even show you some quick shots of my Jeep body that I'm working on right now. And that's it for now. This is Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out.